Hello, everyone. This is Brother Benson Media, and today we are very lucky to be hosting one of our friends who is doing amazing job. Is a human right defender, and we just want to engage him on some issues. And I hope, as a viewer, you will have to get some information and maybe um, to know more, even more about him. Before I go into the main discussion of today, may I take this opportunity to welcome my brother and maybe say his name and so that we might know who we are speaking to.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Benson. My name is Comrade Boniface Ogutwakach. I am a revolutionary from Kisumu, out in the struggle to liberate my people from the struggle and the cycle of violence that has always been affecting my community in Kisumu. That is the western part of Kenya. Thank you
Thank,
for hosting me, Comrade.
thank you very much, brother, for also for taking your time. I know you have a very busy schedule and you gave us also your time because this our channel is still very young. We just started. It is not yet a year. It's almost like around 4 months, if I may say. But you gave us an opportunity to host you. Maybe today we want to discuss about what next for police and the people after the brutality during demonstration. As you are aware, immediately after election, there were so many demonstrations that took place, and during those demonstrations, so many things happened. There are those that were brutally uh, abused by the police, I might say, based on the photos that we are seeing on social media. So we want to know how can we repair that the relationship between the community and the
Mm.
police. And before we go into that, maybe what would you say about the police conduct against demonstration, and what does the law say about demonstration?
Brother Benson, I think the history around the cycle of violence in Kisumu, especially during protests, is um, is the saddest history that we have as a country. I was trying to I read through history, and an analysis I came up with is that as a people from Kisumu, we have never enjoyed 5 consecutive years without the cycle of violence since independence, even before. In the period before the independence of this country, the fight between Kanu and Kadu was violently fought in Luo Nyanza. People saw mass protests. The state responded using brute force, excessive force, and slaughtered a lot of our members of the community. Just after independence, in 1964, when there was the death of Piogama Pinto, people protested in Kisumu. The state still used brute force on the protesters.
Mm.
In 66, when the tribulations of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga started, the people of Kisumu started protesting, and the government responded by, using excessive force on the people. 1969 was the worst because that is the same year when we had the Russia massacre, the massacre that happened at the hospital. It is the same year that Tom Mboya was assassinated. It is also the same year that Jaramogi was really persecuted for his political positions. In all those three instances, the people of my community in Kisumu came out to protest. They were still met by brute force of the law. And this continued in 1975 during the death of J.M. Karaoke. In 1982 coup, in the struggle of multipartyism that started in the late 1980s and the early 1990s. In all these instances that people were coming out to protest, the state was still using the same excessive force that we saw in the recent protests. And this went on, comrade. I can mention, including all these elections that have been held since 97, the year 2002. The year 2007 was even worse for us as a community. 2013, 2017. I actually thought that in the year 2022, we would because there were no protests. And I thought that, oh, maybe we are lucky this time around, there has been no cycle of violence. But then again, when the people came out to protest against the high cost of living, the same brute force was met on them. And we can speak about a lot of other crises, especially political conversations like the fight for a new constitution, the referendum period, the changes that we as a community have demanded, especially say, you remember the protest against IEBC, where there was a slogan of Isaka San must go.
Yes, I remember.
There were various protests that occurred during the death of Msando, the death of Mbai, comrade, all this time we have always seen people being butchered. Our brothers have been killed. Our fathers have been killed. Our great-grandparents have been killed. So as generations, we have been suffering. Our struggle as a people should always be to create a conducive environment for protests to continue. There is no country in this world that was not formed out of protest. There has been no political conversations, progressive political conversations that have occurred without room for dissent. If you don't create room for dissent, then that's a dictatorship. It beats the logic behind democracy. But then we have always witnessed as a people that the state has been, reducing the civic space, that has really, created a very small room for members of the public to participate in their governance. And one of the major ways of participating is through protest. The law, the constitution of this country, Chapter 4, Article 37, speaks clearly around protest. And it says that what members of the public need to do is to notify the police. It also allows for what we'd call spontaneous protest. When it is an immediate reaction to something, it is not illegal to come out and protest. For as long as the police can ensure that they provide security to the protesters, and anybody who's trying to break the law is arrested and action is taken against them.
Okay, okay. Finish, then I will ask you a question.
Yeah, but what have our police always done is that anytime they are notified of a demonstration, they create their own excessive powers, depending on the political inclination of that protest, depending on how it is, how it is impacting the government. They can create any reason, whether they would say there's because of insecurity, but they are not allowed to refuse us to protest. If at all there's an issue around insecurity, that is why their role is to provide security to the protesters. You see, a comrade of mine explained, you see how the police always line along the road when the president is coming.
Yes.
And we can see, even if it is an 80-kilometer road, you'll find that the police have lined up there, and regardless of the masses, the number of masses, they are always able to control, to ensure that that one person, in the name of a president, is safe. Why can't they employ same resources to protesters? That once they know the route that protesters are taking, they are able to line along that road to ensure that nobody interferes with any private property and nobody infiltrates protest. That way, it would be easier to find out what is the cause of this cycle of violence. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to do a follow-up, because you've mentioned various incidences, especially like as a community, as one of a community member that is coming from Kisumu, and based on the history, even during your lifetime, like as a young man today, you've seen this happening when demonstration takes place. Does it mean that um, the people of Kisumu do not do not know how to demonstrate, or it's just like just an enmity between members from particular maybe Kisumu and the police? What is happening?
Two things are at play here, comrade.
Mm,
One, when I started my human rights work, I started as a peace ambassador,
mhm,
and through an organization that I called Sitarusha mawe Tena, which is just an English translation for "I will not throw stones again."
mhm,
We were able to engage in a lot of peace building activities, especially in instances where we thought that there was potential of violence to occur, especially when people wanted to dissent. But what I came to realize is that this violence is planned. These protests that you see turn violent are not just by coincidence. There are people who sit behind, scheme, find a way of inciting the public
mhm,
so that when an issue, there's a small friction, it can quickly escalate. And I will give you several instances. The 2017 elections,
yeah.
even before the elections, you saw that police were arming themselves and being deployed in Kisumu. They even had the guts of speaking to the media and saying that they have brought enough body bags. That is not managing protest. We have always seen that anytime there's an issue or there's a protest, whether in Kisumu or even in Nairobi, across the country, there is always heavy deployment of police who, if you see even the way they are dressed and the way they look at protesters, then you realize that those are not people who have come to provide security to the protesters, but to stop the protesters from ventilating. People have no option. You can't stop a dissent. You can't use brute force to stop a dissent.
Mhm,
People will be innovative and they'll come up with various ways of dissenting. Like I said,
mhm,
from the time I mentioned about the start of violence to this date,
mhm,
it means that for over 80 years,
mhm,
we as a people have been facing that violence. That has militarized us as a people. When you see those protests and people blocking those roads by putting bonfires and putting stones, it is not to destroy property, my comrade,
mhm.
but it is to prevent the police from accessing the communities where they would cause more havoc than we normally see them. Because this helps keeping police at bay. This is not people who come out to destroy property.
Mhm,
The police, whenever they access communities, we always see violence.
mhm,
The second thing at play is that, yes, because of this historical analysis,
mhm,
the people of Kisumu have learned that they have to defend themselves. Because after all this cycle of violence, until today, comrade, for 80 years, we have never seen justice to the victims. We have never seen justice to the survivors. So this has always been a struggle for us as a community. So the people have learned to protest using violence and defensive mechanisms just to protect themselves. So what we need to learn,
mhm,
apart from just ensuring that those who suffer from any injustices get their justice, but also to empower both the police and the public to use active non-violence ways. Comrade, let me open my door for somebody and then I come back very fast.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'll be waiting for you and follow up and uh, and You talk of ways in which we can use, and this is this is where my question is coming, because if you see this history, if oh sorry listen, if the way you've
Yes.
analyzed this history, yeah,
Yes.
it
Yes.
is a history that is stuck with so many of us, and is a history that is
Yes.
also the men and women in the uniform, they have it. So every time maybe our officers are deployed in Kisumu, they are coming with
Yes.
a mentality, with a history with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can we, as a people of Kisumu and the police officers, how can we make the relationship between the police and the community, so that even if you are protesting, the police will know that we are protesting something that is rightfully within the constitution and the law, and us as a community, that's also when we are going to protest, we don't go to
Yeah.
protest knowing very well that
Yeah.
it is war, you know. So both of us, both the officers, yeah, because I know there are incidences whereby the officers have not done it well, but within the forces too, they are good men. They are also good men. How can we as a society or as a community make sure or have a strategy whereby we can mend this history that has been with us, with that long history with negative effect?
Yeah. So again, this is not a recipe where I would say like it is the perfect answer to find the perfect solution.
Mhm.
I think for me, this is just a struggle to try and break this cycle. And these two are my interventions.
Mhm.
Like I said, in 2012, we formed an organization called Sitarusha mawe Tena Peace Campaign.
Yeah.
That organization was basically meant to do one thing, and that was to inculcate a culture of active non-violence actions amongst the people. We must now be very creative. And I think as young people who are now starting to join the front lines, we must be as innovative as possible to ensure that the kind of protests we organize are very peaceful, are within the law, and everybody is able to participate, so that we ensure that the real grievances reach. Now, second intervention for me is around ensuring that we are able to manage our protests, so that if there's anybody who breaks the law within, during, or after any protest, is able to get their justice, whether they are the perpetrators, whether they are the victims, whether they are survivors, whether they are bystanders. Now, in 2017, when we also came out as an organization to speak about peace, there was a question that people kept asking us. What about violence? No, what about justice? Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
And that is why, again, in 2019, we were able to form an organization that is called Kisumu Peace and Justice Center. So this basically supports members of the community, especially those who are disadvantaged, those who are underprivileged, and come from, we have profiled neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We have profiled neighborhoods where this violence normally occurs. Our role has always been to make sure that we support them access justice channels. And I think that is a role that we actively played during the recent high cost of living protests.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you're aware, that is what led to my targeting, because we were able to document police brutality. We were able to document the hooliganism, and we were able to document a lot of violations and respond to them as they occurred during that period. And of course, there were people who are not happy that we were exposing this. There were also those who are very happy that we are exposing this. So, like any two sides of the coin, so we had to suffer the impact. I think as a community, we saw almost 6 human rights defenders targeted by police. I was abducted, detained, and also later dumped after a few days during the protest. A comrade of mine was shot by a tear gas canister in the leg. Another comrade of mine had her offices burnt. We had another one who was attacked and had the jawbones broken. We had one of our monitors in Nyalenda who was shot twice in the back and on the head by these police officers. So there was a clear out order to target human rights defenders and anybody who was playing a role in terms of documenting and exposing the atrocities that were happening in Kisumu. The sad bit is that on that day that we were attacked, I was personally in Kondele, and we were able to witness 7 deaths of young people who were just being shot at point blank range. Some even with nothing wrong that they were doing. Their mistake was just being in a certain community at a particular time. Can you imagine this kind of profiling, my comrade, that we have been suffering as a people? It is very sad and we must intervene. Yeah, those two are my interventions, and that is the way I think we can start. That's my role. But everybody needs to find a role that they can play to ensure that this cycle of violence ends.
Okay, thank you. Actually, what happened the day that you were abducted? Actually, I was one of the media personality who is my friend in Kisumu. We were following up on you because we wanted to host you. So, like, he told me like, Bonnie, I'm trying to reach Bonnie, but like, it's like, so Bonnie's kind of like abducted. I say like, we were supposed to host you like during the protest, the day that you were abducted, because we were following up on you, to have some conversation with you. Let me ask you, do you think it is possible, like, as a community, to talk with the government so that we can have the people who understand us as a community, the officers that understands us, that when they come to Kondele, they know what the community who resides in Kondele, rather than maybe bringing officers that are not new, or the officers that have come with a very opinionated, like you already have opinion, this is what I'm going to do, instead of like, okay, the protest is going to go on, yes,
Yeah.
how am I going to handle the protest? Like, we are going to kill, or we are not going to kill? Like, how are we going? So we get our members of the community, that with the police, the police officers that we know. Can that one also work, or that one cannot work?
We have no option but to make it work. And I think for us, that is our progressive struggle. That what we need to get into now is first to understand this historical analysis of the cycle of violence in Kisumu. Then we have to come up with mechanisms that slowly addresses the impacts. For example, what happened to Baby Pendo in the year 2000 and in the year 2017 is the same thing that happened to the 2 brothers in Nyalenda last month in the last protests. What the police have always done is that they have been progressively become creative to evade the law. So because they know that if they shoot, it will be obvious to put the bullet and match it with the responsible police officer. What they were doing in Nyalenda is cracking skulls, maiming, disappearing people, like what they wanted to do to me. There's a young man called Fanuel Ochieng, who, after being shot, he was barely 19 years old and was just coming from seeing his auntie. And as he tried to cross the road in Kondele, he met 2 police officers who wanted to shoot both of them. The other one ran away. So this police officer came, shot him at point blank. And you know the saddest part of this story is what? Even before Fanuel died, this officer tried to hide the body in a manhole.
Yeah.
It is members of the public who raised alarm and saved Fanuel. Unfortunately, he later on passed on. Comrade,
Uh-huh.
that is not controlling protest.
Mhm.
That one is profiling of us as a people. And like you rightly mentioned, there's a perception amongst police officers who, in fact, at some point, they were saying that they have a discussion within the police force that if you want to be punished, you'd be transferred to Kondele. Because when you are transferred to Kondele, that is where you will meet, you know,
Yeah.
violent and riotous youth. You hear
Youth. Yeah.
that brand tagging that has been given to us, that
Yes.
we are violent and we are riotous,
Yeah.
and that is being given to Kondele. And they are forgetting that Kondele is symbolic to us because it symbolizes our solidarity and bravery as a people
Mhm.
whenever we want to participate in any political discourse. And that is why, for us, that is a very symbolic space because it is the real generals who always have the scars.
Mhm.
Forget those who are now discussing and apportioning themselves position.
Mhm.
The real people, the real heroes
Mhm.
of the struggle are those who have scars, like the family of Baby Pendo, like the family of Fanwell, and a lot of other souls like Michael Okoth,
Mhm.
who've lost their lives out of a police assassin who just wants to stop them from speaking and participating in the management of this country. It is very unfortunate, my comrade.
Okay. I understand you how you are speaking, but the same time, let's now come to the leaders, our leaders. Our leaders in the political class. You know, because um, especially like we just take a case of Kisumu because this is a place whereby you are well versed with it. You remember that during the Hasakasan during the Hasakasan issue, there are so many young men who have endured in the hands of the police and the brutality or all that we call. But at what point are our leaders pushing it? Because like it happens on a cycle. Oh, we've lost him, and hopefully we'll get back so we can continue discussing. So if you have a question, especially for Mr. Boni, you can uh, please write it on the comment section so we can give him this question so he can answer. As we are waiting for Mr. Boni, sorry, we have Victor Oteng. Thank you very much for being for supporting us. We have Kennedy Akech. Thank you so much. Brenda Obedi. Thank you so much. Kenya Revolutionary. Thank you so much. Tony Muhammad, thank you very much, my friend, for always being here for me as we discuss this issue. The issue here that we are discussing is how can we mend the relationship between the public and the police? That is something that we need to do because you know very, very well, you're aware that the police, they're the people who are giving us security. And if the hostility between the public and the police can continue, how will people work? Because at some point, you will need the security of the police. Yeah, and how can this one happen if both the community and the police are not agreeing? They are very hostile to one another. So that is a question that we are trying um, to ask here, Mr. Boni, as we have discussion. I think maybe the internet might have not worked for him, but in the meantime, we can still wait for him. And if you have any question for him, if you're watching, everywhere you're watching, kindly please send those questions in, so we might know. Because one thing that I believe in our society of today, we will not do without the police. They will always be there. The same time, the community will be there. So how can we mend this relationship? How can we make it work? How can we make it? Because one thing we know, the law allows for protest. That is there. You have to protest because the constitution gives you a right to do so. That is something that is there. Yeah. As the law allows you, then how are you going to protest? Yeah. If if the police especially are coming to offer the security services, but with an informed opinion that this is how we should do it. And also we have to interrogate the public when they are coming to protest. Are they coming to protest genuinely? Because some cases we do see that when we come to protest, what happens is that there's a looting that takes place. How can we have one role? And we know that if we have a cause that we are called for, that today we are protesting for cost of living, we make sure that we protest for that. Yeah. We make sure that there is no destruction of the property. We make sure that we give the police the direction. And the same as we make sure all those I've mentioned are taking place, the police also has to make sure that they protect the life of the people. They have to make sure they protect the property. They have to make sure that the people, or the people who want to infiltrate the protesters and do things that are not for what was meant for protesting, they should also um, um, find justice, you know. And we are waiting for the brother to come. If you're there and um, um, you want to give your comment or your question, I don't know what is happening. Maybe there's a problem with the network. Maybe I hope he'll be back and we can continue with the discussion. So any of you with a question, you can send, or if there's a comment that you want to give us, because at the end of the day, we have to find a way of mending the relationship between the police and the community. We cannot live as enemy. Yeah. Because if you continue living as enemy, that it will always be there. And I don't think that one will be good, especially for us. Because there's sometimes that you need to give information to the police. How will you give the information to the police if you are not agreeing? You are very hostile. You are enemies. So that is something that is it's just a discussion. That is my thought. I'm not saying that what I'm saying should not be done, but I'm just giving out my thought as somebody who lives in the society, who interacts. Remember, even the policemen, they are, some of them are our brothers, some of them are our sisters, some of them are our fathers, some of them are our uncles, some of them, we are related in a way. So if we want to see them as enemy, you know so I think if we can find a way of mending a relationship, so we know within our communities that we should be friends, that not every time when I see the police officer, I will run, or if every time I see the police officer, what I see is war. And every time the police officer sees me, like we are not it's like two different people who are just only want to fight. That I don't think will solve the problem. And how can we have a conversation between each one of us, the society and the police? Because sometimes the young men that have been lost, or the life that have been lost, especially the majority, the higher percentage of life that is lost is on the community. But sometimes you also hear the policemen also lose their life in the process. They get beat up. Yeah, and remember, they have family. They are husband, their sons. Yeah. So I think as a country and as a community, this is a conversation that we need to start to talk about, and have solution for it. Yeah. They have to know that the laws allow us. these are constitutions that allow you to protest. You have that freedom of protesting, and they also have to know it is also they have the mandate to give me security while I'm protesting. You have to protest. That is something that is there. You know. So I think it is high time you have this kind of conversation. And like today, I was just watching when the Right Honorable Prime Minister and Kalonzo Musyoka went um, to Athi River where demolition is taking place, and they were not allowed in. They were not allowed even to see what is happening. I know sometimes you know uh, is political. Sometimes it might be political. But one thing that I have to commend the opposition leader and the members of Azimio, when they were told, or when they were not given the access, they left peacefully. And that is what is required. That is how the leadership should be. You know, if you're told this is not it, because if they could have tried to go in by force, the outcome could have been worse, because the police were already deployed in that place and they were ready for that. There is something here by Mr. Victor Oteng. I think as long as the police are still being used by the higher powers, yes, that is true. When the police, you know, if police are not independent, whereby they can make their decisions, then that will always happen. Especially when you look at the political landscape, the times when the government is in place, yeah, the police will always try to work with the government in place. Maybe I don't know whether you want to please your masters or what, but sometimes they end up not of looking at the plea of the citizen. So that is something also that is there. Thank you very much, Brother Oteng, for highlighting that. So what could be the solution? To me, the solution is one, we have to start having conversation with the police, the society, the leaders. We need to have these meetings. We need to have organize some games in the community, so we play the games, interact with the police, so that they know who they are protecting. Sometimes maybe they just come, they don't know who they are protecting. That one can also make that relationship not to be good. So those are some of the things that should be put in place. And I'm not sure whether our guest is coming back. I will have to close the show. If any of you have any question for me, you might let me know before I close the show. And before we do, I'm still saying thank you for everyone who is here, who is watching, and who is giving their comments. Thank you so much for your support. And I know, continue inviting your friends to this channel, so that we can have such kind of discussion. Especially, we discuss things that really really affect us in our community. These are the things that we see. These are not things that it's written about. It's not a theory somewhere, yeah. And it is things that we see, because policemen are our brothers, yeah. They are our brothers, they are our sisters, they are our uncles. So we need to have this conversation, so that we can be free. A free state, a free whereby even if I go for protest, I know my security is guaranteed. If I go for protest, I know one of the policemen is not going to be killed, or is not going to be mobbed, and also I have to know that everybody is safe. For that, I do not have much to say. Victor Teng, for example, during the demos, people are always calm until the police start throwing the tear gas canisters, and that's what always provoke people. That might be true too. So that is something that can be done. For that, may take this opportunity to thank you all, and may I see you next time in the next. Thank you so much.